Matt, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So, what does it mean to be a director of search at an agency in 2025?
At a very top level, I would say it's about helping advertisers and to a certain extent teams navigate the very quickly evolving landscape of search at a very top level. Hugely disruptive time, people looking for answers. Our job is to help advertisers navigate and figure out what does it mean from a media tactical execution perspective in this like ever-changing search landscape.
And what are some of like the biggest questions that you've seen shift between the past few years, you can say, of like traditional search, and now we're in this AI chat conversational search?
Great question. It's all still evolving, but I think some of the big questions are like, what does it mean to show up in these spaces? Like, how do advertisers get into these conversational moments? And a lot of this is still evolving, but I think what's really interesting is search is expanding. Like, search is getting bigger.
It's growing.
It's growing.
All of search is growing, the entire pie. Yeah.
And that's why I love it so much, and that's why I'm so excited for this next sort of transition in the search evolution. It's all getting bigger. It's not a zero-sum game. We're searching in new and different ways. And so the questions are like, what does it mean to be an advertiser in this world? Like, how do we get into those moments, whether it's upper funnel conversational search, whether it's in AI features, AI mode, AI overviews, like how do we show up there? When do we show up there? How do we measure that? Like, these are all questions that we're being asked more and more that we weren't being asked, 2 years ago, obviously.
And so as someone leading a performance team, what are you looking for in the next iteration of skill set from people? Like, what do people need to know if they want to run search campaigns or be a part of brands that need to have a heavy performance focus?
I think a lot of the core skills aren't too different. Like, it's people who are really able to interpret data, really good at critical thinking, like a very much a test but verified mindset. Like, don't take anything at face value.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think just that very sort of performance-based mindset of how do I get as much as I can from a customer conversion perspective with my clients' media dollars. Like, that mindset doesn't change, AI or no AI. That's still core to the work we do and how we approach our work. So I'd say, yeah, being able to interpret data, critical thinking.
Those cognitive abilities remain,
yes,
even though the hard skills are changing,
yeah,
regardless of what's happened in Google Ads in the interface. They need to know what something means when they see all these numbers in the spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's at a base level. If you take that one level up, it's then like, how do I connect those things to my client's objectives? And then you become more of a strategic partner. And what does that look like? But yeah, at the very core, it's still that main skill set.
I'd love to go back to the idea that search is evolving. For you personally as a consumer, do you utilize or do you notice when you're using AI overviews versus AI mode or Gemini in the app? Like, how do you use those three distinct levers of search?
It's such a fun space. I think for me personally, Gemini is a productivity tool. It helps me with things that I probably wasn't using other platforms and tools for before. So it's like a net new way of interacting with the internet. So it's like Gemini's productivity tool, AI mode and AI reviews is more helping me with existing searches faster, be more informed. And I think that's also very exciting as well, is like, as consumers, all these tools and features are helping us be more informed, and we're moving towards a place where the things we're buying or the ads that are being put in front of us are so tailored to who we are as individuals that I think that's just very exciting.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the rise of a super consumer, a consumer that's very informed and has a lot of credible information at their fingertips about the service or product they want to buy. What we're seeing is that queries or searches with 1, 2, 3, or 4 words are decreasing rapidly year over year. And those that have 7, 8, or 9 long tail queries are increasing, right? Where if I wanted to buy a bike in New York City, I would have searched used bike.
Yep.
But now I want a matte black Trek used bike with Di2 gear, right? Like, what I want is so specific, and I know that the search result will give me that option. Are you seeing that in client interfaces? Are you seeing super informed consumer? Are you seeing search query reports with longer, long tail searches?
In short, yes. Yeah, we take a look at that data on a very regular basis, knowing that data is available. It's a very rich data set, all those search queries. We monitor that for every client on a regular basis, and yeah, we see those terms getting longer and longer and longer. And just to talk a little bit about Croud, like, we developed tools to help us interpret that data a little bit more, like natural language tools to be like, what are the patterns and things that are happening within this? It's not just a length thing, like, It's also adding more context around how people are searching and what they're putting in that query to then help us, go back to the advertiser or our clients and say, this is how we need to adjust our creative. This is how we need to adjust our targeting, the audiences we're working with. It's very fun.
And I love that, because something that I say all the time is that brands follow consumers. We're, as advertisers or as agencies, we're never going to know how consumers are going to search next. And so how are you keeping up with the different ways that people are searching? If we note that 15% of all searches every year are net new, or we haven't seen searches like that, how do you advise clients on the future of keywordless search, or more predictive, not precision-based search?
Yeah, so at the very least, leaning into the tools that give you access to those moments. So Performance Max, Broad Match have obviously been huge innovations helping us scale into the funnel, Broad Match scaling to the search term universe. AI Max is the latest new tool. It's something we, as an advertiser, especially if you're going into like a peak, you can't not test that. It's going to give you access to potentially that sort of conversational search, those longer tail queries. I think the way we're positioning it is you've got to lean into all these AI powered tools to understand, the inventory you get access to, whether it's AI mode or the longer searches. If you're not utilizing those AI tools, you could be missing out.
That was gold. And I actually would love for you, if you can, from your perspective, not the platform, describe how you would use PMax and Broad Match and AI Max as like a full funnel approach. Like what would you use those AI powered tools for a certain advertiser? How would you use them in conjunction or separately?
Yeah, I think right now we're in a phase where we use them all together because there's a bit of overlap there.
Right.
And we don't know exactly, what shows up where. So we have to use all three. Performance Max is probably the easier one to take out of the equation compared to Broad and AI Max, because Broad and AI Max still feel very much a search inventory extension, yeah. Whereas Performance Max are obviously talking multi-inventory, display, or video, etc. More full funnel. Broad Match and AI Max kind of live together, overlap as one sort of entity within search. For PMax, it's different. I think the way we measure that activity, the way we think about optimizing that activity, kind of the efficiency guardrails we hold that activity is slightly different because of the fact that it's full funnel. So I think that's kind of how we'd think about separating those out. I'd even go as far as saying you've got demand gen you'd throw in there as well. And there's all these different campaign types, which honestly, I think there's some overlap there. I think our approach right now is like, you've got to have all this stuff live to understand what the headroom is within each of these pockets of inventory.
Right.
Which, again, it's an evolving approach.
But if you don't test, you don't know what the capabilities or the answers even are.
Yeah.
Due to some of this complexity, what are some of the most common questions you're hearing from your clients? Like, what are some of the questions that your CMOs or VPs of marketing are asking you that they want to understand?
Within AI search, I think it comes back to, again, making sure they're not missing out on being in those moments. And so it comes back to leaning into tools like AI Max. That's probably the biggest question. There's a huge sense of FOMO, especially, again, if we go into peak. This is going to be the biggest peak season with AI. Everyone's going to be inundated with case studies in January, February, March, talking about how much AI showed up and was used during peak. And so you have to lean into the tools you have available right now to help you access those moments, access the inventory, because otherwise you can miss out.
I love that. And while we're talking about peak, we're talking about the holiday season, and we're seeing a lot of trends, especially with consumer behavior. And so when we think about AI search, that is mostly a demand capture platform, right? And so how do you work with other biddable teams at Croud to reinforce a full funnel strategy to make sure that your client in that product is in the consideration set when someone is in market for their product or service? Because if they're not in the consideration set, there is much less likely of a chance that they will get chosen for purchase.
Two ways to think about that. The first one is the Google ecosystem in general. Like, it's not just search, it's YouTube, and YouTube's huge. Like, it's definitely an untapped.
Some would say, according to Nielsen, that it's the largest TV platform in the US.
There you go. So it's really important to make sure you're utilizing that inventory and utilizing those campaign types. The other thing that I think is really interesting is search as a sort of full funnel approach. I think what I'm really excited to see evolve is how, as we search more, and search become more complex, how very bottom of funnel, high intent searches, which have always been captured, they're changing, they're getting longer. What about the searches that are upper funnel or more research consideration, but it's still core search, but it's conversational,
right?
That we wouldn't necessarily have wanted to put an ad placement there because it wasn't the right time. How do these AI experiences collapse the search funnel to the point where we're able to surface product recommendations within the search funnel where we couldn't before, if that makes sense. Kind of like collapsing the search funnel.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because even when you have conversational experiences with AI search, most of the time it'll predict your next question.
Yeah.
And you can see that on the bottom. It's like, okay, you asked me this, we had a conversation about it. The logical next question I think you're going to ask me is this.
Yeah.
And so you can go in a sequential path that can lead you in a direction you didn't even start out with. But that's what predictive search is. And so that's how we get back to a predictive or keywordless future, conversational future based on really the website and the content that your advertiser is putting out there. So making this a full circle, what are you advising clients to do knowing that the future of search could look more keywordless, more predictive, more conversational, and it's based on the content that they put out there. A lot of people are calling it GEO, SEO.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing about that?
The really fascinating thing about that is paid and organic are coming together in terms of the
Right.
way they think about things and the way they talk about things. And on the paid side, yeah, we're having to try and speak a language that is a bit more akin to how organic would talk about structured data, technical SEO, content SEO. So those two worlds are going to come together.
Right.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to understand how changes to that structured data impacts paid performance and paid efficiency. This is also a continuation of a trend, which is the importance of the inputs. You know, we've always known that for paid perspective, the inputs are really important, whether it's conversions, whether
The
it's
data
audience
in,
data,
yeah.
data in. This is just a continuation of that. It's more data in, it's just different data. And so I guess going back to the skills question, it's like people who understand the importance of that data and structured data and what that means, and maybe even as far as like having knowledge around like algorithmically, what does that mean? I think those are really valuable skills because that's going to be something we're going to be talking more and more about. And like I said, that paid and organic world is going to come together.
And that's how you show the full value and
Yeah.
of collapsing the search funnel and everything that has to do with AI and conversational search. And I think rounding us out, what advice do you have for people as they go into peak holiday? What's the AI tool set people would have need to tested this summer in order to be successful in Q4?
I think, mentioned it a couple of times, but lean into new features like AI Max. I think creative is also something that is
Key.
getting, really, really interesting. The quality of AI creative has obviously improved so fast.
Right.
And I think we're at a place now where I think I ran a poll on LinkedIn recently and was like, who's using AI creative? And it was like 50% of people.
Right.
Like it's huge. Like if I'd have asked that question 12 months ago, it probably would have been half that. So that's
It also
moving.
equalizes the playing field for SMBs and smaller businesses who couldn't hire a production agency.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing there is there still has to be a human there because
Human in the loop.
Human in the loop. I can't necessarily create creative anywhere near as good as a designer combined with AI.
Yeah.
So that's still really important. Lowering the boundary or the sort of the limit to creating creative for SMBs, I mean, huge. So the speed of being able to execute, create new campaigns, and maybe that's the point actually. It's the speed that's going to change as we go into peak.
Right.
Everything's going to be faster. Q4 is going to get earlier. You know, we're going to be able to build campaigns and execute quicker. It's all going to be very fun.
So your top 3 tips
Top 3 tips are
for holiday execution.
lean into AI first tools like AI Max, test out AI creative, bring paid and organic teams close together ASAP,
Yes, break down the silos.
break down the silos.
And last question here for you. What's your hot take for 2026 in AI search? I'm sure you've been thinking about it. You have other podcasts. What's a hot take?
I think this is going to be the most fun time in search ever in the next couple of years. And I've been in search 10 years.
It's no longer boring. Everyone's
not
talking,
boring.
the CMO is talking about search.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's sexy.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a hot take,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be the most interesting time, just given the level of change, disruption, innovation, everything getting bigger.
Search is top of mind now.
Yeah.
Where it used to be slide 97 in a pitch deck, it's top of mind.
Yeah, and even just going back to the paid and organic worlds coming together, that's huge because I think one struggle organic teams have had have been like proving their value a little bit and like putting a dollar number on their work.
Right.
You bring those two worlds together, that gets easier, and it just becomes this whole search,
Yeah, the full value.
full value
Yeah.
search, which is super fun.
Matt, this was great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great
Yeah.
fun.